Thank you, Chairman Carper. Chairman Carper, Dr. Coburn, members of the committee, on behalf of the National Postal Mail Handlers Union, I appreciate the opportunity to testify here today and to present our views. My union represents more than 45,000 craft employees, most of whom work in the Postal Service's large processing plants, such as the one that I come from in Springfield, Massachusetts. Processing is time-sensitive and labor-intensive. Further reductions in the number of processing facilities or in the hours worked by mail handlers will have a dire impact on the timely processing and delivery of all classes of mail. This is especially true for mail items that need prompt processing and delivery, such as priority, express, or first-class mail, and also medicines from pharmacy companies, newspapers, magazines, and advertisements. The Postal Service has faced some severe economic conditions since 2007. To the extent that the Postal Service has had to downsize because of the Great Recession of 2008 and a decline in mail volume, that downsizing has already occurred. 300 processing plants have been eliminated in the past 5 years, and the employee complement has been reduced by more than 300,000. Postal employees have already contributed to and sacrificed for the financial turnaround of the Postal Service. My members have had their wages frozen for the past 2 years, and employee contributions have increased for both health insurance and retirement. About 20% of postal employees, including more than 5,000 members of my union, are working in non-career, part-time jobs at reduced pay rates. And thousands of employees have been involuntarily accessed or transferred to other work locations, often hundreds of miles away, and have had to uproot their homes and their families because of the closings and consolidations of the postal network. Last week, the Postmaster General testified that the Postal Service has reduced costs by $16 billion during the past few years. As a labor-intensive service industry, it should be clear that most of those savings have come from postal employees. A fair estimate is that the recent bargaining agreements have contributed $12 billion to the Postal Service's expense reductions. The question to be asked, therefore, is what have the other stakeholders contributed? First and foremost, it is now time for Congress to take action. Most of the losses announced by the Postal Service over the last few years have nothing to do with a failing business model or the obsolescence of the mail. In 2006, Congress mandated that the Postal Service pre-fund future retiree health benefits and do so 75 years into the future, but do so within 10 years. We all know about the pre-funding. The Postal Service now has $49 billion in that account. The facts are even brighter with regard to retirement. The Postal Service not only is fully funded in its retirement costs, but in fact, as we heard earlier, has overfunded the share of the federal employees' retirement system. Congress needs to act immediately to adjust the FERS account using postal-specific data and return the overpayments. Nor should there be any severe restriction on how the Postal Service should use these monies. It should be allowed to pay down some of its debt and invest in programs and technologies to grow the business. With all respect, S. 1486 does not properly deal with both of these issues. On retiree health, the bill does not eliminate the remaining pre-funding requirement, but rather defers these unaffordable payments until 2016. Although the bill reduces the overall funding to 80% of total liability and allows for the payment of current retiree health premiums from the Retiree Health Fund, the annual payments that would be required from the Postal Service starting in 2016 actually might exceed the obligations under the current law. With regard to pension, the draft bill unacceptably caps the FERS refund at only $6 billion. S. 1486 also fails to require an accurate calculation of the postal surplus attributable to the civil service retirement system in the manner reasonably proposed by S. 316, which has been introduced with 31 Senate co-sponsors. And in one of its most unjustified provisions, S. 1486 would subject the continuation of federal health and retirement benefits for postal employees to future negotiation and arbitration, thereby threatening the future solvency and stability of the entire federal health benefit program and threatening to single out new postal employees for grossly unfair treatment on the subject of employee benefits. This bill is also deficient on issues relating to the maintenance of service by the Postal Service. After a 2-year moratorium, S. 1486 would allow for the continued dismantling of the mail processing and delivery network that has always been the backbone of the Postal Service. Allowing the Postal Service to reduce service standards or eliminate days and points of service will only lead to lower quality and slower service. This would cause additional losses in business from mailers and the American public, which in turn will lead to deeper cuts and a continuing crisis. We also see no reason that the major mailers and the mailing public should not be asked to contribute their fair share to the future success of the Postal Service, perhaps by loosening the cap on rates to something more than the Consumer Price Index, or by measuring inflation with another index that more realistically reflects the cost pressures faced by the Postal Service. As currently drafted, S. 1486 also contains a wholly unjustified reduction in workers' compensation benefits. The legislation would penalize injured workers with the worst injuries by forcing them into a retirement system that is based on their final salary, even though they were prohibited from earning increases in salary because of their on-the-job injuries. These workers also would be unable to save through the Thrift Savings Plan or earn Social Security credits while receiving workers' compensation. These provisions need to be removed. Finally, let me address the Postal Service's proposals to change its retirement and health insurance programs. With regard to retirement, there's no basis whatsoever for the proposal to leave the FERS system and adopt a separate defined contribution program. As already noted, retirement obligations are fully funded, if not overfunded, and do not impose any burden on postal finances. As for health insurance, the Postal Service continues to call publicly for a USPS-only health plan, but that proposal is inconsistent with my union's guiding principles on health care for our members and other postal employees. First, we insist that the Postal Service remain part of the Federal Employees Health Benefit Program to ensure the continued success of that program and to take advantage of the size and bargaining power of the Office of Personnel Management. Second, we insist that our members continue to have a wide range of choices in health insurance plans so that individual employees can choose which plan is best based on their family situation and other circumstances, just as all other Federal employees are allowed to do. Thank you again for allowing me to testify. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Let the record show you used every second of your time except for the last 2 seconds. That's pretty good timing.